In the liquid part of the portfolio, I now opted to, I basically just have Bitcoin, MicroStrategy, 4 or 5 miners, some oil companies, and some gold miners. That's it.
All right, hello and welcome to Camel Finance. I'm your boy Camel, and that gent right there is worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $13.8 billion. So as you can see, you don't necessarily have to diversify. In fact, me and Mrs. Camel had a funny conversation the other day about diversification versus diversification. So pick the fastest horse and go big. That is not financial advice. It's probably not smart either, but this guy does it and so do I. Anyway, let's move on to today. Today, I want to talk about a couple of things. Okay, first of all, some Bitcoin, and then I'm going to talk about whether or not there's a big imminent market crash coming in the stock market. So we're seeing a lot of people talk about a big crash, a big blow up that's due in September or even October. Maybe, okay, it's a market, anything can happen. But whilst everyone is calling for the same thing, then possibly something else is going to occur. So we'll get to that in just a minute. For now, check this out, okay? Market cycle pattern for Bitcoin. Both of the previous bull markets took exactly 1071 days to unfold bottom to top, and both of the previous bull markets topped out at the 2.272 fib level. So if the pattern repeats, we will top out somewhere around October 2025, and it would give us, according to this at least, a target somewhere in the neighborhood north of 400k per Bitcoin. So you can study this chart as much as you want. The point I'm trying to make here is everyone seems to be here for the 2024 to 2025 Bitcoin bull market. And I have been making this case over and over and over again that I just don't think we're going to get that yet. Now, we do need to see some more time evolve. We do need to see some more candles. I am close to being invalidated on my all-time high this side of the halving hypothesis. Miles has also been championing this for the entirety of the way up so far, all-time high before halving. So this is the non-crowded trade, in my opinion, to expect the all-time high to come early and for them to use the ETF as a distribution tool. But, of course, we have to be open to all outcomes. Maybe we are going to do what we've always done historically, which is look left and therefore repeat the 4-year cycle. So maybe this is coming, right? Maybe what we have is something like this, and it takes ages and ages and ages, and then we get the parabolic blow off top right at the end, just like we did here and here, of course, right? So maybe that's what's coming. But like I've been saying over and over again, I think it's more likely we're going to get something like this and then a 3-year bear market decline. I think that upsets the most amount of market participants. And you can kind of see that here with this chart where everyone keeps looking left and expecting this to go forward. So will me and Miles here be right or not? That's to be determined. Under the hood, things keep getting better for Bitcoin. So there's been this long-awaited Bitcoin and crypto accounting reform, which just was passed a couple of days ago. So what this allows companies to do is use fair value measurements on their books. So in more simpler terms, at the moment or prior to this thing going through, companies could only value the Bitcoin at the lowest price since they bought it, which meant that they would be forced to record losses and not report the gains after the price had recovered. So it was just this complete blunder where if you put Bitcoin on your balance sheet and the price went down, you had to report that loss. But then once we got into the next year, once the price had recovered, you still couldn't really report that as a gain. You couldn't really come back and say, oh no, it's fine, we're back to break even. There was this weird accounting problem. So needless to say, if you're a CEO, if you wanted to add Bitcoin to your company treasury like MicroStrategy has, why would you want to do this, right? There's not really an incentive there. You're going to buy Bitcoin, it's potentially going to go down, and then whether it recovers or not, you still have to report a loss for your Bitcoin, even though it might not necessarily be in a loss. But this has now been fixed, and so Bitcoin keeps notching up the wins. In addition to that, now companies can see this and say, okay, I'm not going to have to report an unrealized loss or a loss for holding Bitcoin anymore. Now we can report it properly. So happy days there. And I would think this does incentivize more companies to start to add Bitcoin to their corporate treasuries, of course. So as I said at the start of the video, in regular markets, in traditional finance, we are starting to see a bunch of people call for the end of the world and a complete collapse somewhere between today and October. But here we have from Jim Cramer, it's September, don't trust any rally unless the yield on the 10-year drops and oil loses at least $3. Was there ever a better buy signal than when Jim Cramer says do not trust the rally? Henrik here points out, look, if markets should be on the verge of a major decline or a crash, we should be close to a recession. If we're close to a recession, OAS should be rallying. However, it isn't. It's declining. So therefore, we can conclude we are not yet close to a recession, and hence markets are not about to crash. So you can see here the options adjusted spreads are declining, not spiking like they did here during the recession, not like they did here during the great financial crisis, not like they did here during the dot-com bust. We do not have yet a spike in options adjusted spreads, and therefore we can say with reasonable confidence that the market is not about to crash, at least according to this metric. And it's not just that, because look at the credit spreads. These are not screaming imminent crisis either. Look, massive spike in credit spreads. How does this look? Nothing like the left-hand side. So it's a market, anything can happen, and there's a lot of people out there calling for this black swan in September or October. I've seen people using all kinds of decoding the matrix type approaches. Maybe they'll be right. I'm not saying there's no merit to any of that stuff. All I'm saying is, from a market perspective, from a trader's perspective, the conditions do not look like we're about to have a big crash, at least from my perspective. Now, hopping into the charts, the dollar's still on a run. Are we going to run 106 and roll over? That's to be determined. Until we get a breakdown on this upward sloping pink resistance line, then the dollar's going to keep running because it's going to continue to stay in an uptrend. Bitcoin still doing a whole heap of nothing, isn't it? So I really have nothing to say about Bitcoin at this moment in time. I was talking about this for a couple of days. I said, look, some kind of pullback before we can resolve higher. Markets do not just move in a straight line, of course. So we seem to have got that pullback. Now we need to make sure we hold this upward sloping blue support line. But remember, we have completed 1 and 2 technical repairs. So some kind of pullback to this blue line before resumption higher should be well within the realm of expectation. Same is true of the NASDAQ, isn't it? So a little bit of a pullback to the yellow line before then re-breaking out and going again. That seems like perfectly healthy uptrending market structure to me. Notice how the Dow Jones just does not want to break out, just doesn't quite want to confirm it. But I'm not entirely surprised, given that this is 8 or 9 months of resistance overhead, right? All of this, we hit it here, 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 and here. So is it surprising that we don't just go 1, 2, 3? Not really. I do still think a little bit more chop in this neighborhood and we could possibly get long as it reverses, but it clearly has to do a little bit more fighting in this neighborhood before it can make its decision about whether it's going to break down or break out. VIX apparently getting a little bit of a counter trend bounce, but I do still expect this to roll over once the stock market finds some support and continues its uptrend. I haven't covered Apple for a while, but here it is doing what I wanted it to do. So I think we could possibly draw a trend line like this. I think it's safe to say that we did start to V back out of here. We're now getting rejected. We're probably going to do something like this and break out. And if we do, that breakout can be a long from me. So it's going to need a few more days, possibly a week or 2 before it can break out. But break out above that downward sloping pink resistance line and you will see me add a long, possibly something like this. So that's Apple. Consider this called out ahead of time. Haven't checked in on Tesla for a while either. So breakout retest maybe. I still think the purple line is the one I want to focus on. So these are kind of short and a bit jank looking. They're not very clean, are they? This one's all right, right? This one's got good symmetry, meaning the distance between this touch, and this touch are pretty close. Breakout, retest, and go. That's quite a nice angle. It's not too steep. But here, it's like, what is this, right? No real symmetry. It did kind of break out, and now it's sort of not really pushing off. So I think we'll get rid of this, and we'll stick to the original plan. If Tesla can break out of this downward sloping purple resistance line, then there's nothing above it, right? It can just break straight out and go. So that would be the trade I'll be sitting patiently for. Like I said with Apple looks a bit better. So if we got the distance from here to here, if we can add that to here and get a breakout somewhere in this neighborhood, then we can say, again, nice symmetry, something like this, and go. And that'd be a really nice trade. So anyway, that's Apple and Tesla. It's been a while since I covered them, but I haven't forgotten about them, of course. And people have been asking me to cover these a bit more. So here's Coinbase. Is this leaving behind a series of higher highs and higher lows? It has yet to make a higher high, but we have indeed got higher lows for now at least. So I don't really know. I can't really say anything other than I'm long, I'm strong. We'll continue to push and see what the market can give. MicroStrategy as well, kind of hanging around. It's made one repair, hasn't it? This first one is repaired. So now it's just got to get a little bit higher above this outside downward sloping red resistance line. And we could see a breakout and a tear from MicroStrategy. So again, I continue to push and continue to remain long. There's nothing else I can do. The stop is the invalidation. So until I'm stopped out, then I'm not wrong. So I just got to keep pushing the trade. Same here, very steep, but breakout, retest, possible resumption higher. We're also above this upward sloping blue support line, and we're above this horizontal blue support line for the range breakout. So all the while we're holding this neighborhood here, we remain bullish on Riot, we remain long and strong, and we continue to push. And Marathon as well. Look at this, same sort of thing, isn't it? Bounce off of support, Straight into resistance in the red, pullback, higher low so far, still looking to break out. So can it, can't it? That remains to be seen. But until we are stopped out or below the critical support, then the thing is bullish. I don't know what to tell you. One thing I will point out at this point, notice how all four of these are showing relative strength to Bitcoin, right? Whilst Bitcoin still is in this range and still is kind of almost bending downwards, almost start to curl down, almost tells me we might have to see something like this into that cycle low before we can even think about going. And if we do breach down here, then are we necessarily going to come swinging out of there like that? I don't know. I would think possibly if we break down from here, then we've probably got another 60-day cycle before we can even think about reversing. I want to take this one day at a time because there's nothing to say this won't do that and turn up. But notice how the point I'm trying to make here is Bitcoin is kind of trending this way, right? And these crypto-related equities are kind of trending this way, at least for now. So same here, right? Same here. And of course, same for Marathon. So usually, and I often say this is a biomarker for a Bitcoin pump. Is it the same this time? I don't know. But for now, objectively speaking, the miners are showing relative strength. And usually that means Bitcoin is about to get bullish. I'm not saying it will. I'm just saying that's usually what it means. So that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed today. It is, of course, Friday, so I hope you have a great weekend. I'll be back to examine the closes on Saturday, as I always do, and get ready for the week ahead. If you made it this far, thank you. And here's a bit of bonus content. This has got to be one of those moronic things I've read in a long time. I really didn't know where to slot this in today, so I just thought I'd do it at the end. Check this out, okay? Time for the UK to tax inflation. Yeah, you read that right. Time for the UK to tax inflation. So measures targeting salary increases or excess prices would provide the Bank of England with another policy instrument. How exactly would this work? Well, the government might also consider a measure that would directly operate to bring inflation expectations down without necessitating a rise in unemployment. This would be a tax on inflation. For example, they might announce a baseline reference level of the growth of average hourly earnings over the next year of 3%. They could then implement a tax whereby each firm who grants a wage increase above 3% would be required to pay 100% tax on the excess. So, clown world? Yeah, I think so. I'm your boy Camel. All the best from me. Take care. Cheers. Bye.